Hey everyone, welcome back to the Underswell. I'm Derek Sabori. Today I'm here with a really exciting video. It's on two topics that I hear a lot out in the marketplace. You're maybe using them, you're hearing about them, you're reading about them. I want to break down the difference between recyclable, recyclability, and circularity. What are the differences between the recycling economy and the circular economy? Ready to dive in? Whole bunch of different reasons. We're going to look at each of those and make sure that we understand the difference between that language. It's really important to me that when you go out into the marketplace that we're all speaking the same language and that we are talking to our customers in the same way and not confusing them with language that maybe is incorrect, maybe it's a little off, and maybe it's even unintentional greenwashing, right? So let's make sure that we are using the language correctly and that we understand the difference between these two important topics, right? Recycling is good. It can be good, right? When done properly. Recycling requires infrastructure, and we have to have the right materials that went into place. There has to be a place to collect those materials when they're done. Essentially, recycling is taking an item. Let's take an aluminum can. That is an item that has very efficient recycling with it. So you take an aluminum can, that can is used, it's sent to the recycler breaks that down, we take that aluminum, we use it again to make new cans. And that's great. We're using the material over and over in a recycling way. And there's a system in place for it. Essentially, recycling keeps things at the same level of value, right? We're using aluminum in, aluminum out, back into aluminum over and over. It's actually very similar to a circularity in a way. Circularity, though, on the other hand, is actually something pretty specific. And circularity kind of comes from that concept of cradle to cradle. And if you haven't seen my video yet on the 3 books that I encourage all of my students and clients to read, go watch that. One of the books that I encourage everybody to read is Cradle to Cradle. And in that book, they break down circularity in a very specific way. One, it's this idea of eliminating waste. So there is no waste in the circular economy. 2, it's powered with renewable inputs. It's powered with renewable energy, right? So renewable inputs mean that we used renewable rather than finite resources to create that product. All of the inputs, we've eliminated hazardous chemicals and we're powering the whole system with renewable energy, which is great. And then at the end of life, there is never waste. So the product at its end of life maintains its value. That product goes back into that same item and can be made over and over in a circular loop. Very similar to, I think, recyclability, but recycling doesn't have probably all of the specifics that circularity does, or at least the expectations I think that circularity does. So we can put recycled inputs into an item, right? So a product that is made with rPET, or recycled polyester, which is very available in the marketplace today. That was made with recycled inputs, but those recycled inputs came from another industry, right? Most often those came from recycled plastic bottles. And that sounds exciting and fun at first. But think about it. We're using another industry's waste. We're taking the single-use plastic bottle industry, and rather than them getting that bottle back into their waste stream, that would be a more circular approach to that, bottled product. We're taking their waste in an industrial ecology sense, and we're taking it over to our industry, putting it in there and making products out of that. At the end of the life of that product, of that pant, let's say, that was made with recycled polyester, what do we do with it then? Can we break that down mechanically or chemically and put that back into a closed loop system and make new pants out of that again? No, not right now. We just can't. We don't have the infrastructure. There are innovations that are coming on board. Yes, there are investments being made and we're getting closer and closer, but a lot will come with that, right? There has to be policy for extended producer responsibility. How do we make sure that the brands are getting those products back to recycle them again? Were they made safely enough with all of the inputs so that they can be recycled in a clean way? Are the retailers in the loop? No pun intended. Are the customers there as well? Is everybody playing on the same game? Just like in the canned industry, the aluminum can example that we talked about, there's a system in place. You take it to the recycler, there's a system, it's made into new cans. For the textile industry and apparel, we don't really have that in place yet, so we're still struggling against that. But we want to use, ideally, our own waste at its end of life, getting our materials back into fiber, into yarn, into fabrics again, and then doing that over and over. So that would be a circular economy in the apparel industry. putting recycled inputs from other places, even if it's ocean plastic or recycled plastic from plastic bottles or anything else, that is good, it is better, but we are still using another industry's waste. We need to be using our own waste in a circular fashion, right? So hopefully that starts to illustrate the example. Using recycled inputs is one thing. Having a product that is recyclable at the end is another. And those two things don't always have to align, right? So you might have something that is recyclable, but maybe it wasn't made with recycled inputs, right? And if we're recycling it into something else, then that's not circular. We want to keep it in a circular form and make our products at its end of life back into the same product that we started with and keep this loop over and over. And we want to keep it clean, and we want to do it with renewable energy, and we never want to see things end up in the landfill or go to waste. Remember, that's our linear economy, where we would take or extract materials, we make our items, we use them, and then we waste them. We send them to waste, we send them to landfill. That's the linear economy. We need to move to a circular economy, right? And a circular economy is pretty specific in the cradle to cradle philosophy and others. When we talk about biomimicry as well, there are two waste streams. There's the biological waste stream and the technical waste stream, or the nutrient stream. So in circularity, we think in terms that everything, since there is no waste, needs to go into one of those two places, either the biological stream back into nature for degradability or composition, or into the technical nutrient sphere where it can be recycled over and over. So it goes into one of those two places, and everything else, or any mix of those, becomes sort of this hybrid beast that we call it, or it becomes just sort of unappetizing because there's nowhere for it to go. So we have to get really specific when we're talking about circularity. So please don't just call something that is made with recycled inputs, that's not circular. Just because your product at the end of its life can be recycled, that's not circular. It's not until the products that were input were made from the products at its end of life, and that they're actually being collected, put back into use, and that there's a system in place so that it is happening over and over. That's when we have our circular economy. Hopefully that breaks it down a little and starts to explain what the difference is, but be sure you're using the language correctly. Circularity is something that is very specific, it's aspirational at this point, and it is still developing. In the textile and the apparel space, it is definitely not to scale yet. There are a lot of things that we are concerned with, especially when it comes to cellulose fibers versus synthetic fibers, the chemicals that we put into them, the dye stuffs, the treatments that are on these products, the collection facilities, any infrastructure that we have, getting the customer on board, local policies, government intervention, or brand commitments overall, etc. There are a lot of players. It's a systems approach, and again, definitely something that we should aspire to, but I think we're still a ways off. So for now, using recycled inputs is good. Trying to find a way to recycle those products at the end is different. There's another video that I did, if you want to check it out, on the difference between recycled, upcycled, downcycled, and circular. That'll also explain too where things go at their end of life after they're recycled. That might help you as well. So hopefully that helped. If you liked this video, if you like things like this, be sure to click the subscribe button right down here below so that I can keep you updated on new videos that come out when we're talking about sustainability in the apparel industry. And if you want to learn about more topics like this in the apparel industry when it comes to sustainability, click the link down below and get your 35 things that I think you need to know on your way to becoming a sustainability expert in the apparel industry. I hope that helped. I'm on a journey to share everything that I know with you so that you can keep learning like I keep learning, and so that together we can make the apparel industry a more sustainable place, kind of one item by a time, season after season. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one.